Welcome to PlayStation Versus. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The first thing we want to do is actually explain what the hell is ray tracing in general. Now, I know Digital Foundry likes to throw around a whole bunch of fucking terminologies, and maybe a lot of people don't understand it, so I'm here to break it down. There are a lot of moving pieces when it comes to ray tracing, and what we're going to focus on is reflections because this is what Digital Foundry was actually referring to. So basically, the most important piece of ray tracing is what we call BVH, or bound volume hierarchy, or boxes, if you want to call it that. It is the magic for ray tracing to actually work. It involves bouncing the light rays around, or just rays in general, rather than test every polygon to see if it actually interacts with a ray. The idea is to test a portion of the scene to see if it interacts with this ray, and then keep drilling down. If there's an intersection or interactions with that portion of the scene, then you subdivide the boxes to a smaller portion and test again and again and again and again until you get something. Each test allows for a significant number of options, in this case polygons, to be discarded as possible to get the right amount of polygons in just a fraction of the time. Basically, what this allows to do is to not be so memory intensive and not be so ray intensive. So you're discarding rays that will be out in the Netherlands. It just bounces to infinity. So you just kind of localize it into, that specific area or box, which is the picture that you just saw. Now, you can clearly see with the picture coming up, there's pieces of this environment that is not reflecting. That's because of the BVH. The BVH structure basically deemed that the reflection either is too much, who knows what happened. But the developers claim that there's a one-to-one parity with each console, that both of the effects are the same. That doesn't, you clearly saw with the pictures that there's something going on that's completely different. So I got a load of pictures coming up here, such as this. Xbox Series X does not reflect the character, which again is with the BVH system. It's choosing to call out certain pieces of the environment. It's a simpler one. You clearly see it. They said it was one-to-one. Digital Foundry claims and confirmed that it was one-to-one, and we see that there's a complete difference. Now, touching up on a BVH system, as you saw with the picture with the rabbit, basically it creates boxes around the polygons, and that's how it tests and be able to delegate what gets reflected or bounced, or whatever the light rays or whatever the rays that are being traced gets calculated. If you have less boxes, then it's not going to have that specific piece of that environment or character reflecting. It's not in the structure itself. That's what the BVH does. That's the magic of it. It's the only way to make things faster and more organized when it comes to, tracing millions, probably, I don't know if it does billions, but at least millions of fucking rays. And that's what's really going on. I guess really what I want to say is, why did Digital Foundry do what they did? Why did they make this video? You have to ask yourself this. It's like, what is Digital Foundry doing? I get that they want to test and see what's going on with the PS5 versus the Series X. The reason why they did this video is because they're completely befuddled as to why the PlayStation is punching, as they say, above its weight. It doesn't make sense. So this was the only way for them to actually tell at least a little bit of it, what's going on. You know what I mean? But in actuality, in real world scenarios, there's a lot more to this situation than what it makes out to be. Because in the real world scenario, the Xbox Series X is struggling, That's one of the fucking problems. Now, we all know that there's AI and a whole bunch of other shit that goes on when you're actually playing a game. And it's funny because the Series X struggles in real world scenarios where the PS5 isn't. And then I start thinking to myself, didn't Mark Sony say something about like what do you call it? The smart shift, where it balances out the energy to a chip that needs it. So it really invalidates this whole comparison, isolating the GPU from the CPU and the smart shift setup makes it invalid. It does. The system is not a traditional one where it requires constant power, and although it can, it is designated to pass off power to a chip that needs it when it's being stressed out. Normal, what I see with the Digital Foundry analysis, that's normal usage. It's not being stressed out. It's just normal usage. So you can actually look at it like this, to be honest. This looks like the case of the GPU working at its stock clock speed. And so it's not really using anything. The CPU is not really being in use. So it's like, it's not being stressed out. It only kicks in to its max clock speed if it's being stressed out. And this was regular usage, not much was going on. So it's not really utilizing the smart shift. That's the thing. I don't know why they don't know. So there's this rounds that were being made from this guy on Twitter called Another LED, which he seemingly is friends with another guy that's Leviathan Gamer, which is supposed to be an engineer, right? He posts pictures of the PC version and shows that that whole smart shift thing that I was just talking about is invalid because it still uses the CPU. As you can see here, this is actual gameplay, and you can see the CPU usage up there. It's 48%, you know what I mean, 42%. And then when you go into the photo mode, it goes down to 32%. I mean, you can clearly see it here. 34% specifically. It is definitely not being used as much. And then you talk about a 16% difference. You can't say it's not being in use. Regardless of the matter, my point still stands when it comes to smart shift. It still stands. The bottom line is this. I don't get it. It is designed to balance power between the two chips, depending on what needs what in milliseconds. The developer doesn't even actually have any say in this. It does it on its own. Once it starts to stress out, it will pull on the other chip that's not stressing out to boost it, basically. All these smart motherfuckers online that supposedly knows all this other shit seem to not have found this. I'm trying to figure it out. What's going on with you guys? Like, I'm trying to understand. You can't figure out something rudimentary. And I'm not saying that Sony is doing magic sauce or a secret sauce or whatever the case is. It's not a traditional system. Normally this technology is in laptops, you know what I'm saying? That's where it's at. But now it's on a full-fledged console, and it is being pushed way farther than typical clock speeds for the fixed clocks that we normally have gotten. It is not the same situation here, and I don't understand why they're not figuring this shit out. It's really dumb.